Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm really excited to see what the runes have to say for this week ahead. I have been busy doing TikToks. You can find me with my name, gabrieljonathanmiranda, on there. If you're interested, they're funny videos. I like to make people laugh sometimes. And also, I've been busy because last week I was doing a lot of preparations for the summer solstice, which was yesterday. I hope you guys had a wonderful solstice and enjoyed yourself. It was a fun one. I enjoyed it. I went to the beach. I had some time to be with the water and be with the ocean, because alongside the solstice, we had also transitioned into Cancer season. So that's fun. No offense to the Cancers out there. Love Cancer, love my Cancer people. They're really cool peoples with the crab and all that fun stuff. But from an astrological perspective, it can bring a lot of emotions to the surface. It can invite us to explore our emotional depths in such a way that we have to also be aware of safety, be aware of our boundaries, be aware of the things that make us feel safe, secure, and to look at them, to look at those qualities in us and amplify them or rework them. Because sometimes the mechanisms that we have to maintain our safety in our life may not always be good for us at this time. They may have been functional in the past, but they may not be functional in the present moment. For example, if you have a particular practice that you use to protect yourself, for example, I know for me, sometimes I like to retreat into my cave, retreat into my hermitdom, and oftentimes, that was a way to protect my heart, especially when I was feeling sad, or if I was feeling pressured, or perhaps if I was feeling excitement about a really good thing that was happening to me, and I didn't want to be disappointed if it didn't work out well, right? So a part of that was to pull away from that excitement, to pull away from those emotions. And so Cancer season is really inviting us to explore our relationship to our emotions, to explore our relationship to our emotional body, to ourself, to how we respond to the things around us, because Cancers are deeply sensitive people. They're ruled by the moon, and the moon is a deeply powerful spiritual celestial body, right? And it influences us in so many ways. So it's about connecting to your emotions. So if you guys have been feeling really emotional for the past 2 days, it's because we did transition into this new season, which is fun. And we also just went into Venus into Gemini, which was earlier today, if I'm not mistaken. And that's also really fun because it brings a lightheartedness to our relationships, a levity to our interpersonal connections. But a part of it also, for me, feels as if it's going to be a lot of boundary exploration. There's going to be a lot of reevaluating our levels of commitment to the things that we may have committed to in the past that we may no longer be able to do so in this present moment. And the reason why is because we also have the influential energy of Saturn in retrograde in Aquarius still in effect for the next couple months ahead. So that's going to affect a lot of the energies of the transits that we're going through. So with Venus in Gemini, bringing lightheartedness and levity into our interpersonal relationships alongside the transition into Cancer with the Sun's energy reaching its peak, but now slowly edging towards winter, right? Slowly edging towards the darker days of the year, because we have passed the lighter months, right? Now we're in the darker half of the year, the beginning of the dark half, which is our first toe into the water, so to speak, right? Yeah, first toe into the water of all of these beautiful relationships that we can flourish in, but it's time to cut the weeds. It's time to, what's the word? It's like clear out the garden, right? Clear out the garden of our lives, of our hearts, to walk in there gently and understand that beautiful quote, I forgot who it's from, but the difference between a weed and a flower is a decision or a choice, right? And so looking at the things that you value in your life at this time and coming to understand what you may need now and what you no longer need. So that seems to be the theme of this summer solstice, I'm planning on doing a fun little summer solstice reading for you guys to do like a pick a card kind of deal, which is going to be fun. But first, runes. Let's see what they have to say for the week ahead. So the ruling tree of the summer solstice is the oak, which is has a very interesting linguistic cognate in Old Irish to mean a door as well, andur, andorus. So there's a lot about that transition, a lot about that crossing a threshold, walking into a new life. But in order to do so, you have to release what you no longer need, right? Which is what I referenced earlier in regards to weeding out your garden or going into your garden and making a decision, the hypothetical garden of your soul, right? And as you walk in there and notice the seeds that you've planted or the flowers that have grown or the weeds that have grown, understanding that the distinction between what is beneficial to you and what isn't is the choices that you're making in your life at this time, right? So you have a lot more agency and power than we oftentimes realize, you know? So the oak being a very powerful tree that rules this part of the summer months in the Celtic calendar, right? The tree of, the oak's energy as a tree is deeply rooted, strong, tall. But oftentimes, I know we've often heard the story of oaks being pushed down by a strong wind, especially because of their rigid nature, right? Sometimes they're too rigid. And so we're moving into this energy of fluidity, of emotional balance, of looking into our boundaries, like I had mentioned earlier, and reevaluating them so that we don't have to be as rigid, right? So the oak tree of our soul can continue to grow strong and tall and provide the shade that we need in the hot summer months. So with the runes, I find it really interesting because a lot came out. So it might be a very packed week. I feel like many of us may be super busy, perhaps super busy in terms of like work or work schedules or financial stuff. I can see people being very busy booking trips or you know, going to parties or going to events or social things, right? It feels very packed and very busy. But there is this feeling of wanting to carve out time for oneself. So I do hope that you do take that opportunity to carve time out for yourself this week, because that is very important to maintain, again, those boundaries that we've been talking about. So starting from the middle and radiating outward, we start with Ewas in, not merkstaf, not upright, it's on its side. And this particular rune is one of those runes that no matter how you flip it, it's going to remain the same, right? So when it falls on its side, it feels to me more significant than if it was upright or merkstaf, right? Because it can't showcase a merkstaf position. So being on its side is an invitation, in my opinion, an invitation into a new experience, because Ewas represents the yew tree. The yew tree often grows in graveyards and cemeteries. And the tree is very unique because oftentimes it'll create new sprouts in other locations and it'll grow from its dead trunk, which is really cool. So the idea is that it's a portal between one life, like this life, and the portal into a next life, right? So the yew tree can also represent people in your life that are trustworthy. So it may be a time for you to connect. What I'm hearing is reevaluate the ways in which you allow yourself to be vulnerable with the people around you. And I don't mean that to make you feel like, oh my goodness, I have to be looking around all over the place. No, I think it's more about understanding that you can reach out to other people and that people do want to support you. And that sometimes if you want to keep something to yourself, that's okay too. And knowing that if you really feel like you want to share it with someone, you could share it with one person or with many people, but that's always your choice. And so understanding your power in regards to how you share your life with others, right? And seeing this yew tree here, it's surrounded by Isa here, which is ice, the rune of ice. We also have Haglas, which is the rune of the storm. And then we also have, this is Turisas, but it was in Merkstaff position. So this to me feels like, well, if I were to read it quite simply, right, it would be storm, ice, and then well, untrustworthy energy. Let's put it that way. So take this message as it resonates for you, right? This is not a message for everybody, because there are a lot of people who are watching this video, and of course this is just working through a general reading, and so I'm trying to make it as generalized as possible. So what I'm reading here is that for the upcoming week ahead, we're going to be experiencing a lot of outward or outside storms or outside circumstances or situations. It's going to feel like a lot of busyness, and sometimes that busyness may be, you know, trouble at work environments, or things going awry. I like that word, things going awry. Not necessarily wrong, but awry. Think someone who like woke up out of bed and like the bed head is super frizzy and like you got dry ends everywhere. You're just running around like a loco, like a crazy. That you're going like, oh my goodness, right? It feels like that there's a lot of that around in the energy in this week ahead. A lot of busyness. And ice, the Isa, is asking us to crystallize our boundaries, to allow ourselves to see things from a perspective of, okay, I know that there's a lot going on outside of me, but I also can make sure that things are peaceful within me. I can create these beautiful ice crystals. I can use ice as a means to push out my energy, right? Because ice is one of the few things that expands when it freezes, right? When it turns into a solid. When it freezes, water expands, right? So that expansion of our sense of self, expansion of our boundaries, and then keeping those boundaries up, right? It feels like protecting ourselves, especially, you know, being truthful, because the Turisas in Merkstaff is about being truthful to ourselves, being truthful to our masculine energy. Then we have here Yera, which I think is really cool. It's just the year, cycles and seasons. We also have Manas, which is the rune of mankind. And we also have Fehu, which is abundance. So there's a lot of beautiful things coming, because this represents to me help from outside sources. It represents abundance, prosperity, and wealth. It also represents a closing of cycles and allowing divine timing to take place. So for the next week ahead, to wrap it up in a nice little bow, a nice little bow tie, I would say that this next week ahead, or this into the weekend, right? It's gonna be busy. There's gonna be a lot happening around you, right? Or around us generally. A lot of, like I said, social circumstances, a lot of work environment circumstances that are not necessarily bad, but are going to be very challenging. There's going to be a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. And we're being asked to maintain our boundaries. We're being asked to remain firm in what we need, what we want, and to always carve out time for ourselves in the coming week ahead, right? And this is going to allow us to reevaluate these boundaries, how we create these boundaries with ourselves and others, understanding that when we do make time for ourselves, we are eventually making time for everyone else, because we're able to fill up our own cup that then we can offer to others once we are full, right? Once we are taken care of. Then we have all of this abundance waiting for us in the week ahead. So after the weekend, because the weekend feels like the part that's going to be really busy. After the weekend, things are going to calm down, and I feel like we're going to see a lot of things that were waiting in the wings in divine timing are going to fall into place. So I know that seems very vague, but I try and keep it vague because it is a general reading. And I want it to be able to apply to many people, right? So I hope that that resonates with you. That's what I see so far. The last thing that I will say though is that you have people in your corner, right? You have people who you know in your heart that want to see you succeed. And you can trust these people, and you can trust yourself knowing, you can trust yourself in knowing who you need to trust, or you can trust yourself in knowing your boundaries, knowing your wants, knowing your desires. You can, I think this is an invitation to start trusting yourself more, right? Which I think is really beautiful. And that's going to bring a lot of abundance with this Fehu here. So, I hope you enjoy this Cancer season. It's going to be fun. Like I said, a lot of emotions, but I think it's going to be a good experience. I hope you had a wonderful summer solstice. I look forward to seeing you guys next week here on the channel. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe below. You know what to do. And I'll see you guys here next time, alright? Bye everyone.